Hello and welcome back to Kim Reads to continue with Changes for Kaya. Chapter 3, Trapped by Fire. The twisted gulch they rode down was narrow and steep-sided. Kaya rode as fast and as close to Tota as she could, keeping steps high right behind her. The foal ran, too, his head at his mother's flank. Across the gulch, small fires flapped up along the ridges where the two winds meet, pushing the fire back and forth between them. That side, the north one, was thickly wooded with juniper and fir trees. Kaya knew fire would burn fiercely in these dense trees. The south side, where they rode, was covered bunches of grass and a few pines scattered here and there. Fire would burn more lightly on the side, though in the baking sun the air itself felt like fire. Her eyes stung, and her throat burned with every breath. In a gust of wind, the wavering fire across from them dipped down the pine. Swiftly it grew and grew. Kaya watched in alarm as burning pine cones began to swirl through the air, starting spot fire down the slope. The smoke blackened and boiled upward. Fire began to grow like a bear as it spread both up and down the slope. Could it keep the pace with them as they galloped their horses down the gulch toward the open end and safety on the plain beyond? The frantic horses couldn't be held back. Every fibre of their beings wanted to escape. Other creatures also sought escape from the windswept fire. Frightened deer, their brown eyes wide, leaped out of the thickets and bounded to the south side of the gulch. Racing toward the ridge, jackrabbits came to and ground squirrels. Clouds of grasshoppers and whirled up out of the smoke. Patches of brushes under the tree burst into flame, flushing grouse and quail. When Kaya looked back, she saw Raven lying low on his horse, one hand cupped over his nose and mouth. Kaya thought only, "Stay with Tota. Take care of Stepsize and her foal." Fearfully, she looked across the gulch again. Heat waves heaved and buckled above the spreading fire. Fiery pine needles rose up like sparks flying. Burning twigs snapped and cracked. Juniper trees began exploding in the intense heat. But was the open end of the gulch wasn't far off now, was it? Kaya coughed and her eyes stared in the bitter smoke. It was almost too hot to breathe, and fear was another fire in her chest. It was all she could do to cling her horse as it bolted behind Tota's along the narrow mountain goat trail. Then with a roar, the ground fire on the north slope suddenly, Kaya saw the topmost branches become the crimson tint of flames. Then the trees burnt from the tops down like torches. A high wind gusted from the burning trees, making the boils fires hotter still. When snapped off branches with a sound like bones crackling, it lifted logs into the air. The fire spun down to the bottom of the gulch and burst across the slope down south slope below them. With a stab of pure terror, Kaya realized now that it burned ahead of them too. Blankets of black smoke covering their escape route. The panicked horses doubled back, bumping into each other, rearing and snorting in terror. Kaya fought to stay on her plunging horse. Steps High reared again and again. Would she fall behind on the slipping stones? Would the fall be trampled? Terrified, Kaya thought, have I found my horse only to lose her to fire? Tota scanned in steep-sided gulch, looking for a possible escape route over the ridge above them. But rim rock created a barrier just below the top. Could they find a way through the barrier? Kaya saw there was no choice. They had to try. "Stay with me," Tota shouted over the howling roar. "Don't fall back." His face was black with smoke and fierce with determination. Did he see a way out of this fiery trap? He gestured for Kaya and Raven to follow as he turned runner toward the steep slope above them and urged them upward. Raven's horse clambered up behind. its powerful haunches nodded with effort. Kaya forced the chestnut to follow and yanked on Step-High's rope to bring her along. The foal sprang over the rocks like deer, but could the horses climb faster than a fire? Racing for their lives, they struggled upward. Ashes like flakes of snow swirled across Kaya's sight. Burning embers fell on her head and shoulders, stinging her hands when she brushed them away. On the loose stone, the horses' hooves slipped backward with each lunge until they gained a broad shelf not too far from the rimrock barrier. Then the wind suddenly split in the smoke, and for a moment Kaya saw the barrier clearly. Was that a slash of crevice away through? Could they reach it? Again, Tota signaled for them to follow. Raven urged his horse after Tota as the curtain of smoke swung close behind them. Before Kaya could follow, Step-High began to rear, whipping back her head and forth frantically. Kaya looked back. The foal wasn't there. Was it lost in the smoke, caught by the rushing fire? Frantic to find her foal, Step-High thrashed her head, tearing the rawhide rope from Kaya's grip. "Stop!" Kaya screamed. "Don't go back!" But searching for her foal, Step-High had already plunged down the slope and vanished into the smoke. Kaya tried to rein in the chestnut, turning it back after Step-High, but the panicked horse resisted. Without thinking twice, Kaya slipped off the chestnut, which pushed up on the slope where Tota and Raven had disappeared. Kaya swirled around. Smoke surrounded her on all sides. Through the smoke, the sun was blood red. She stood alone. Her eyes felt blistered by the heat, and she cupped her hands over them. "I must be strong," she thought. "I must not give up." When Kaya opened her eyes, Step-High was lunging out of the blackness, her foal again at her side. She reclaimed her young one. As Step-High came near, Kaya leaped to catch the rawhide rope still encircling her neck. With her horse pulling her, Kaya stumbled alongside as they started uphill again. Jagged stones tore at her feet. Her ankle twisted and she lost her footing. She fell uphill onto her stomach beneath the horse's legs. Kaya's rolled onto her side. Would the hooves crush her? But Step-High curled her forelegs and managed to bring her sharp hooves down below Kaya's head. "Katsi yow yow!" Kaya cried. But she knew that on foot she couldn't keep up with her horse. Step-High would have to let Kaya ride if they were both to escape the fire. When Step-High turned uphill again, Kaya saw her one chance to mount. If the horse threw her off, there would be no second try. Using all of her strength, Kaya scrambled onto a boulder, clapped Step-High's mane onto both hands, and dragged herself on the horse's back. Step-High shuddered, but accepted Kaya's weight. Her horse hadn't forgotten. Kaya rejoiced to be one again with Step-High, but which way should she go? She had no idea. The blowing smoke created a vast cave with no opening. She'd seen a crevice in the barrier, but what was it? There or there? Which way might offer an escape? If they went the wrong way, the fire would seize them. Then Kaya heard a shrill whistle, one high, wavering note that cut through the roar. Could it be a green wood swinging in the flames? Then the whistle came again, more urgently. "Here, here," the whistle sang. It came to her that Tota was whistling to her, signaling the way. She looked toward the sound, but could see nothing. Then a gust of wind knifed through the smoke, and again and again. Again, she spotted the crevice with a deep game trail leading toward it. As Kaya turned Step-High among the game trail towards the opening, with the foal pressing after, they gained the side of the barrier. Now Kaya felt wind pouring through the opening. Now Step-High felt the wind too, and nosed forward through the bulk of the secret narrow passage. "Go!" Kaya urged her horse. Step-High moved with one step and then another. Kaya's knees scraped the sides as they slipped through the foal following. On the far side, Kaya saw the ridgeline right above them. She clasped Steps High even more tightly with her knees and pressed her face into the black mane. "A little farther, we're almost there," she cried. A few more steps, and they had reached the crest. Still panicked, Steps High started to tear down the other side, stones showering out from under her hooves. Tota, on lathered runner, was riding back up the hill, looking for Kaya just as Steps High had reached her goal. He swerved her runner, grasped the rope around Steps High's neck, and brought her to a standstill before she could injure herself and Kaya. Steps High chest heaved, and her coat was drenched with lather. The foal's legs shook with fatigue. As Kaya slumped forward, her breath rasped in her throat, and her lungs ached from the smoke. Tota threw his arm around her shoulders. "Rest a moment," he said. "We're safe here." Kaya gazed around. The fire didn't threaten them because an earlier one had already burned off the hillside. Ash gray patches of sage still smoldered. Juniper stump smoked. In some places, fire had swept so quickly that it left scrub brush only singed. Farther down the stony hillside, Raven on his horse made his way to the narrow river, where deer and elk stood chest high in the water. He glanced back and raised his hand to her. "They've made it to safety." "You fell behind," Tota said in his deep voice. "I thought I'd lost you." "Steps High ran away from me to find her foal," Kaya gasped. "When I caught her again, I lost my way. But you whistled to me. I followed your whistle and found the opening." "Katsi yow yow, Tota." Her voice shook, and she thought she was laughing until she felt tears running down her cheeks. Tota wiped away her tears with his palm. "I'm so proud of your courage, daughter," he said. "You saved yourself, your horse too, but what was that?" You whistled hard. "Your whistle," Kaya repeated. Gazing into her eyes, Tota slowly shook his head. "I was headed for the river when I realized you weren't behind me. Right away I started back for you. But I didn't whistle to you." "That must have been the stick people. They showed you the way." "The stick people?" Kaya asked. "Uh-huh," Tota said. "I think they saw you needed help and they gave it." Kaya's head was spinning, but she remembered she must leave a gift for the stick people. "What can I give them?" she asked Tota. "We'll leave them many gifts," Tota said. "Now, let's go to the river. The horses need water, and we do too." Still clasping Steps High's rope, he began to lead Kaya on her horse down the burned-over hillside, puffs of ashes rising at their feet. And that is the end of that chapter. See you later.